Hello everyone. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the situation between, happening inside Russia, and about the person that was recently, it is believed, that was murdered by Putin. His name was Navalny. I think I'm saying that correctly. And but before I talk about that, I just want to say welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Susan Morales, and my channel focuses on learning how to follow Jesus in an everyday kind of way. And we talk about all kinds of things, and how it relates to our beliefs of Christianity. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about the connection that I personally felt between that situation and Jesus Christ. So this is going to be a bit of a chat about the things that I've been hearing and watching. I recently watched the documentary on this person. I heard about it and I was very intrigued. It won an award, and it was quite before I go into it, I should talk about the situation a little bit. Sorry, getting out of this cold that I've been in, and I just have that lingering cough. So I live in the United States, in California, and so it's like, why do you care? Why do you care what's going on in Russia? Well, for starters, I like to think that I'm someone that cares about things that happen in the world, and I do try to educate myself as best as I can without overloading myself with so much tragedy at the same time, because a person can only take so much bad news, and without internalizing it and it becoming an unhealthy thing. But this it caught my attention because it caught the attention of our president, and he actually went on a what would you call it? Not a live stream, I guess technically a live stream, for depending on the platform, right? And he talked about it, and it kind of struck me a little bit because, well, first of all, I saw some comments on X, on Twitter, and I saw that this had happened, and I saw a bunch of videos and pictures of this man, Navalny, and I saw that there was a quote of the President Biden, having said years ago that if this man died on Russian territory, that it was going to lead to big consequences for Russia. And so people were like, okay, so what is Biden going to do? Is he going to follow through? Or, it was mostly probably people were commenting on how he's not fulfilling what he said, and so that caught my attention. And then when I heard someone else talking about his documentary, and what I was saying, President Biden went on this live video talking about the terrible thing that happened to this man, on top of other world leaders. I think Trump also posted a comment about him, and so I'm like, who is this man, And Biden actually said that since that time, well, first of all, he accused Putin that he was responsible, that this was a murder, not contrary to what Russia was saying, that he just, I don't know, became ill and died. This is a man that was like in the prime of his life. I'll go into like more about what was like his life story and what his situation was, but the president, and you know, he was asked later, like, so do we know for sure that Putin did this? And he's like, well, in other words, he said something like, we don't know exactly like the details, we can't say like 100%, but he's like, but for like, in other words, it's like, we know he did it. And I was kind of surprised, because I thought, you know, if you're the president and you're going to come out to your country and make these claims, you better have some good reasons to make that claim. So it was kind of like weird for me to hear him say that. And so like so I decided to watch the documentary. I had to like subscribe to something, and I'm gonna unsubscribe to like that streaming thing, but it was worth it for me. Like, I wish I didn't have to pay money for it, but I did. And the documentary was surreal, is how I would describe it. If I would have seen it at the time that it was released, it would have been a completely different experience than that I watched it after his death. First of all, it's interesting to just see this person. It's a different type of documentary. It's more like it follows him and his life during that period of time. And so you get to see his personality, his relationship with his wife. You get to hear his daughter processing what happened to her dad. I'm not sure what the actual purpose was for the documentary, what the timeline was, but it seems that, I could be wrong, but to me what it seemed like is that this documentary was meant to be about something, and then all of a sudden it actually documented a Russian crime, and it actually documented, it made the case for why it's reasonable to believe that Putin is behind what happened to this man. It starts off with, sorry for that loud noise, it's the back street right here where I'm at. It starts off asking him a question, and the person that's asking it to him is like, I know you're not gonna like this question, and he's like, so if in the event that something happened to you, or you died, you were killed, what would you say to people? And right away he's like, oh, what kind of documentary is this? Like, like, this isn't that kind of documentary. Like, if let's just film this documentary, and if something bad happens to me, then you guys make the sad documentary. But it was kind of funny, but he went along with it, and he gave like a brief message in English, something like, you don't have permission to like not do anything, something like that. And then the person asked him the questions. The interviewer said, now can you say it in Russian? And so he went longer, you know. And that's the video that we have. That's the video that was going viral once everyone learned of his murder. That is the message, what you see, and it was caught in that documentary. So the documentary, it shows him traveling and how he was like an activist. He was like someone, I think on YouTube, he was spreading his findings on the corruption of the Russian government, and like just how corrupt the way they went about the money, all of that. And so he had a following, a big following, and so he ended up going somewhere. I recommend watching the documentary because I can't go into every detail, and they did such a good job. But pretty much he ended up going somewhere, and he's like surprised, why aren't there more people here, and why aren't my police here? His personality seemed like very funny, took life, made jokes, but during hard times didn't like, him and his wife did not like to admit or come across as fearful. And which leads me to think like, was there something wrong with this man, or was he just a very, very brave person? Because the average person would be very fearful, wouldn't want to speak. But there's something though that he did say, and I think this had a lot to do with it. He said, the more famous I became, the more safe I felt. Like Russia, Putin would not harm him because now people would know who he was, and it would be harder for him to get away with something like that. And I wonder if that, I don't know, if it was like his downfall, or just that overconfidence, or was this man just, he knew he was going to be a martyr and he was willing to be. So he was jokingly like, oh, I'm kind of offended, where's my police, and so come to find out, something happened, because he was trying to document, like, I think the poverty in certain cities, like a real journalist, not the journalists that we have these days showing the best cities in Russia. If you know, you know who I'm talking about. His name rhymes with Tucker. So what ended up happening, long story short, they recorded, and they don't really show him, but they show the recording of him crying, moaning in the airplane. And so what ended up happening is that the airplane landed in time for them to like resuscitate him, and they took him to a hospital, which was suspect, and his wife immediately shows up, and there's like bodyguards like, no, you can't enter the hospital, and she is staying calm. Which is amazing, because exactly, I think she knew that if you don't stay calm, you give them a reason to arrest you, or to say she was being erratic, so we have to kick her out. She stayed calm the whole time, which is very amazing. I think she's one of the bravest women alive. She says that she knew that she couldn't trust that hospital, and that she didn't want them to finish the job in the hospital. So they're, sharing the updates. I think his personal secretary or something online, sharing what's going on. They're like, don't believe anything else that people are telling you about what's going on. We're going to tell you the truth here. So long story short, it just so happens, for whatever reason, that they're like, okay, we're not against you taking him to another hospital. Okay, so they decide to take him to another hospital. and there, she didn't record, take pictures. She didn't want, if this was his last time, she didn't want those images out there. She wanted to protect the image that her husband worked so hard, right, to portray. What he represented: strength, opposition to the corruption in Russia. And it was discovered in that hospital that he was poisoned, the same poison that Putin had been discovered of using to poison another person. And so they knew that that's what happened, but they didn't know how it happened. So in the documentary, you start to see Navalny get back stronger little by little. He wasn't in Russia. So he decided, I'm not going to go back to Russia until I'm healthy, until I'm strong. So, but he was determined to go back. Because of some internet nerds, not government officials, just regular people that were able to track. What happened was that they were able to track through computers, through somehow, who was responsible for what happened to him. And they go into detail in the documentary. So this person approaches him, and it's in the documentary, like when these things are happening. And his, I think, secretary or whatever her title is more skeptical of this person, like asking questions, like, because she was under the impression that he might have been a spy. But so finally he shows them, this is the person that did this to you. So they decide they're going to make it so that all the news people report this at the same time, the same day. And on top of that, he decided that he was going to call the people. I think it was like 4 people. And he was going to, the first 3, I think it was the first 2 or the first 3 people he called, he just says, like, so something like, why did you kill me? Or why did you try to kill me? And so they just hang up, Some of them were onto him. He started to try to do like the prank way, and like to pretend that he was their boss, like the government, and he wanted a report of why they failed and how it could have been better and how they can be successful next time. All of them were onto him. One of them even says, I know who you are, and just hangs up. But it's interesting because they're like, okay, I think the scientist or the chemist or whatever he was, he is going to talk to you. So anyway, it was like I think it was like the last person, and he went with the prank version again, and he actually fell for it. And you can see him just having to think. This man was very smart, Navalny. He was pretending, and he had to just think on, like, quickly, like, what am I going to say next? And despite this person's, like, resistance, what am I going to, how am I going to come across like I'm one of these Russian leaders or whatever? The guy spills everything. He talked about how the poison, some of it was through a water bottle, and the rest of it was placed in his underwear, where a specific part of his underwear. And not just that, but he talks they discovered that it was like he had been followed for like years. This was like planned for a while now. And so I left off in the, so he explained also how they they put the poison there, but not just that they took him to that hospital, the first hospital. Oh, yeah, and that they made sure that they washed the underwear, all of his clothes. They made sure that his clothes didn't have any evidence of the poison. And not just that, but that they washed his whole body at the hospital. So they tried to erase all trace, and so he's like, but how come they were able to discover that he was poisoned? And the man said they must have found it in his blood or something, some other way. And so they asked him, and who was responsible, who was in charge of this, and they said the name, and he confirmed it. So finally, like, after they got the information, they recorded it, they hung up, and they're like, you could just see how shocked the people that were recording with Navalny. They were just like, you could see that they were trying to hold themselves. They were shocked that this was actually happening. And after, they're like, oh, poor man, they're definitely gonna kill him. And I think at the end of the documentary they say nobody knows what happened to that man, so obviously something happened to him. So they're like, oh yeah, we should definitely recommend that he like get protection or leave or something, you know, because that's the end for him. So they released this video, their findings. It's made public, and of course the government denies it, and that's the documentary. And they show at the end he's strong, he goes back, and all the reporters are in the airplane with him, and you can see how people were showing up to the airport where they thought he was going to land, and they were being arrested like unfairly. Just random people, like, not being told where they were being taken, why they were being arrested. And so they ended up detouring the airplane to land at another airport. And once he's checking in, here come the officers, and so they escort him, and you know, he says goodbye to his wife, and his wife makes a comment leaving the airport as well. Then you see that you see him in court, like just doing like a thing like this, like a heart and like this to his wife, and yeah, you could just see this man trying to be brave, trying to be strong, but pretty much defeated. I think he knew. And so they were I think, for me, I mean, I'll just say the documentary ends with just saying that he was convicted for, like, I think it was like 30 years or something like that to be in that prison. And they show him, like, later on, he looks, you know, they cut off his hair, and he just looks, you know, like trying to keep his spirit up and things like that. But that's what to me was, first of all, I know how it ends, the story ends. So to me it was like, how sad, you know, like that this documentary ends this way, and that the ending, we know what is gonna happen to him in that jail, and the details are still to be, you know, known, because to the last that I've kept up with the news, they were not releasing the body. Some people said because they didn't want people to see the bruises or the evidence that he was murdered. And then they said, okay, to the mom, that she could, apparently she was able to see the body, but she had to agree that it was going to be a private burial, or else they were just going to bury him in like the prison cemetery or something like that. And so she was, I think she was, there's the law involved, and so obviously she's speaking out about they're going against the law and the way that, you know, they were supposed to go about things. And so I don't know how it's going to end. President Biden met with his wife and his daughter recently, and they gave Russia, they announced like, I want to say 500 sanctions, new sanctions, I think. So apparently Russia is the most sanctioned country in the world, so I don't know if that's going to make a difference. But that's what's going on. And you know, the president kind of ties it with, that's why we're never gonna give up on Ukraine. I don't know what the situation is, how those things connect and things like that, but yeah, I know, but I'm not sure that I necessarily agree. So I just wanted to say that, all of that to say that I thought, wow, like this is, I don't know. Obviously I don't believe that any person on this earth is, you know, like a sinless person. Obviously everyone has their weaknesses, their moments, they're not perfect. Everyone portrays what they want to portray, right, to the public. But it just seemed like, wow, I got to witness a very brave person that lived on this earth, that went against the corruption, the evil, that they wanted to bring a change. And he ended up, it seems, willingly giving up his life for what he thought was important. Seemed like he cared about people a lot, because why else would you do it, right? Was he trying to become president? I don't know. And even if he was going to bring a good change, then that's still admirable. I don't know if it's called president or whatever their titles are, you know. So to me, I just thought, wow, you know, I felt like I can't, like, as a human, you just know the emotions that this person must have been going through. And for him to go through with it, and his wife too, you know, she was a huge part, I'm sure, of his success in, I think it was a successful life. And she gets to continue, you know, the what do you call it, the movement. It's like they represent all the Russian people that are wanting to resist with the corruption, wanting to make Russia a better place. And I just thought, wow, like, it reminds me of, you know, Jesus, about how, you know, Jesus had his human flesh, and so he had his weaknesses, of course, and he had his moment, you know, when he was praying in the Garden of Olives and asking God if there was another way. But he went through with it, knowing full well what was ahead, and that was super brave. And of course, what Jesus was fighting for is like way more of significance, of eternal impact, than what Navalny was. But still, it helped me to think, what must it have been like to have witnessed Jesus, everything he did, his bravery during his time, the eyewitnesses, the people that knew him, the people that were following his movement, you know, although his was an eternal one, not one that he wasn't here to change the kingdom, the earthly kingdom. But he was fighting the darkness, the dark kingdom, and it seemed like he lost, but actually he won. He won in the end, and he's sitting at the right hand, and the enemy is waiting for his judgment, pretty much. And so whatever the Lord allows in our time here on earth, whatever the situation will look like in Russia, I just wanted to share with you that story of this brave man and brave woman, his wife, his mother, very brave as well. And I heard that one of his in-laws, I think, was taken to prison, trying to squash the story or whatever. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you guys. So thanks for listening, and leave your comments below. I would love to hear them. Remember to like this video if you like it, and stop by again for more videos about how we're learning to follow Jesus in an everyday kind of way. Bye.
I can see your love now. I can see how you gave your son for me. I can see your love now. I can see how you died for my place. I can see your love now. You're coming back.